Alien nurse shocked by an unexpected swelling between her human patient legs. The Galactic Station's military hospital hummed with activity as medics rushed to treat the influx of wounded soldiers from the latest skirmish. Amidst the chaos, a striking humanoid nurse named Zyler focused intently on her newest patient, a human male with chestnut hair and a dusting of stubble across his chiseled jaw. Zyler's emerald skin shimmered under the medbay lights as she brushed a lock of navy hair behind her pointed ear. Here humans were still a novelty to the galactic community, and she couldn't help but marvel at the alien male's exotic features as he lay unconscious and vulnerable before her. "What's this one status?" Zyler asked, glancing at his chart. "Stable condition, but he took a nasty blow to the head," the lead doctor replied. "He'll likely be out for a while in there. Meantime, standard sponge bath protocol." Zyler nodded, gathering the necessary supplies. As an aspiring nurse, she took pride in providing the best possible care, even to these strange new allies. She filled a basin with warm soapy water and set to work gently cleansing their human's battered body. Zyler found her gaze lingering on his sculpted muscles. So different from her own species' life, physique. A warmth spread through her as she wondered what it might feel like to be held in his powerful arms. Zyler shook her head, dispelling the inappropriate thought. She had a job to do. Moving lower, she delicately ran the sponge along his legs until by the 7 moons, Zyler gasped, jumping back in shock between their human's legs. Something was growing, swelling at an alarming rate. In all her studies, she'd never seen anything like it. Panic seized her. Something must be terribly wrong. "Doctor, come quickly," Zyler cried out. "I think the patient is coding." The lead doctor rushed over, took one look at the human's condition, and tore Zyler's utter disbelief. He burst out laughing. Soon the other medical staff joined in the gals. "Oh honey," an older nurse chuckled, wiping mirthful tears from her eyes. "That's no code, that's just his little soldier standing at attention." Zyler stared at them, perplexed. "I don't understand. Is this not a sign of impending death in humans?" "Far from it," the doctor replied with an amused grin. "It's a perfectly normal biological response. Human males have quite the impressive equipment down there." "Congratulations, nurse. It appears your gentle touch was more stimulating than you realized." Mortified, Zyler felt her cheeks burn bright purple with embarrassment. She'd never live this down. Determined to maintain some shred of dignity, she straightened her shoulders and returned to her task pointedly. Ignoring the snickers and knowing looks from her colleagues as she finished the bath, Zyler couldn't help sneaking a few more curious glances at the human's mysterious swelling. She had so many questions but didn't dare voice them all. She knew was that humans were even more fascinating than she'd imagined. Days passed. Zyler found herself volunteering for every shift to care for the soldier. She told herself it was to make up for her earlier blunder, but deep down she knew there was more to it. Something about this man called to her late one night as Zyler was adjusting his pillow. The human's eyes suddenly fluttered open, locking onto hers. She froze, captivated by the intensity of his gaze. "Where am I?" he rasped, his voice husky from disuse. Zyler swallowed hard, her heart racing. "You're safe in the hospital," she managed. "You were wounded in battle. We've been caring for you." A weak smile tugged at his lips. "Well, I must have died and gone to heaven because I'm looking at an angel." Zyler's blush returned with a vengeance. She wasn't sure if it was a compliment or delirium talking, but she couldn't deny the thrill his words sent through her. Just then the doctor entered, interrupting the charged moment. "Our Sergeant Wild, glad to see you've rejoined the land of the living," he said jovially. "You gave us quite the scare, especially poor Zyler. Here she thought your mowering glory was a sign you were knocking on death's door." The doctor GAA at his own joke, and to Zyler's surprise Wild joined in with a good-natured laugh. He turned to her, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Well, nurse, I'd be more than happy to give you a chance to get better acquainted with my swelling." Sometimes Zyler felt her cheeks burn even hotter, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the tantalizing bulge beneath the sheets. She bit her lip, a seductive gleam in her eye as she met Wild's smoldering stare. Maybe this mortifying mix-up was their start of something unexpectedly thrilling. As Sergeant Wild began his long road to recovery, Zyler eagerly volunteered to oversee his physical therapy session. She told herself It was purely professional interest, but the electric tingle she felt whenever she was near him suggested otherwise. Wilde grinned as Zyler entered the therapy room, his eyes roaming appreciatively over her L-form. "Well, hello there, my favorite nurse, ready to whip me back into shape?" Zyler fought back a blush, determined to maintain a semblance of decorum. "Of course, Sergeant, we'll start with some basic stretches to improve your mobility." As she guided him through the exercises, Zyler couldn't help but admire the way Wilde's muscles flexed, rippled beneath his skin-tight workout clothes. She found herself lingering just a bit longer than necessary when adjusting his posture, relishing the feel of his firm body beneath her fingertips. Wilde, for his part, seemed to be enjoying the attention immensely. He made a show of grunting and straining with each movement, his face contorting in exaggerated expressions of effort. "PHW, you're really putting me through my paces, nurse. I might need some extra special care after this." Zyler rolled her eyes even as a smile tugged at her lips. "I think you'll survive, tough guy. Now let's move on to some resistance training." She handed him a set of elastic bands, deliberately brushing her fingers against his as she did so. Wilde's breath hitched at the contact, his pupils dilating with unmistakable desire as he began the exercises. Zyler found it increasingly difficult to tear her gaze away from the enticing bulge that strained against his shorts. With each movement, memories of that shocking first encounter flooded back, sending heat coursing through her veins. Wilde noticed her staring and shot her a wicked grin. "See something you like, nurse?" Zyler's cheeks flushed a deep emerald, but she couldn't resist rising to his challenge. "Just admiring your form, Sergeant. You seem to be making excellent progress." "Well, I do aim to impress," he drawled, flexing his biceps for emphasis, "but I think I might need some hands-on assistance with my next set." Heart pounding, Zyler stepped closer, placing her hands on his hips to guide him through a series of squats. The heat of his body seeped into her palms, igniting a fire within her. As Wilde straightened up from a particularly deep squat, he suddenly lost his balance, tumbling backwards and pulling Zyler with him. They landed in a tangled heap on the exercise mat. Zyler sprawled across Wilder's chest. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, panting heavily, their faces mere inches apart. Zyler could feel the heart evidence of wild arousal pressing insistently against her thigh. "I guess I fell for you," Wilde murmured, his voice low and husky. Zyler swallowed hard, her entire body thrumming with need. "Sergeant, we shouldn't." But Wilde silenced her protest with a searing kiss, his lips claiming hers with a passion that left her breathless. Zyler melted into his embrace, all thoughts of propriety flying out the window as she lost herself in the exquisite sense. He awakened within her. Wild hands roamed her body, leaving trails of fire in their wake. Zyler gasped as he cued her breasts, his thumbs teasing her tops through the thin fabric of her uniform. She ground her hips against his, desperate for more friction, more contact, more of him. Just as Wilde began tugging at the zipper of her jumpsuit, a loud cough from the doorway startled them apart. Zyler leaped to her feet, hastily smoothing her hair and clothing, while Wilde sat up with a sheepish grin. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," the doctor said, arching an eyebrow at their disheveled state. "Not at all," Zyler replied, her voice an octave higher than usual. "We were just working on some core strengthening exercises." The doctor looked unconvinced, but simply shook his head and chuckled. "Well, carry on then, but do try to keep it professional, you two." As the doctor left, Zyler turned, Wilde, her face burning with embarrassment and unfulfilled desire. "We can't do this again," she whispered. "It's too risky." Wilder reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "But it feels so right," he murmured. "I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." Zyler closed her eyes. Torn between duty and passion, she knew falling for a patient was a recipe for disaster, but how could she resist the magnetic pull she felt towards this man? With a sigh, she stepped back, putting some much-needed distance between them. "Let's just focus on getting you healed, Sergeant, one step at a time." Wilde nodded, a rude smile playing on his lips. "As you wish, nurse, but just know that I'm not giving up on us that easily." As Zyler resumed guiding him through the therapy exercises, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just gotten a whole Lot more complicated and a whole lot more exciting. Xyler couldn't stop thinking about Sergeant Wilde and their undeniable chemistry between them. His roguish charm and playful flirtations had gotten under her skin in the most delightful way. She found herself looking forward to their physical therapy sessions more and more, craving any excuse to be near him. One day, as Xyler was heading to Wilder room for their scheduled appointment, she heard a strange noise coming from the adjoining bathroom. Concerned that he might have fallen or injured himself, she rushed in. Without knocking, the sight that greeted her made Xyler's jaw drop, and her cheeks flush a deep emerald. There in the shower stood Wilde in all his naked glory, his impressive swelling on full display as he pleasured himself with long languid strokes. Xyler let out a strangled squeak of surprise, causing Wilde's head to snap up. Their eyes locked, and for a moment they simply stared at each other, frozen in shock. Then Wilde grinned completely unabashed. "Well, hello there, nurse. Care to join me?" Xyler's blush intensified, and she quickly averted her gaze. "I'm so sorry, Sergeant. I thought you might be hurt and I didn't mean to intrude." Wilde chuckled, turning off the water and reaching for a towel. "No need to apologize, gorgeous. I'm more than happy to give you a private show anytime." Xyler stammered out a few more apologies before fleeing their bathroom, her heart racing and her mind reeling. The image of Wilde's nude form, all hard muscles and tempting curves, seemed to be seared into her brain. Later, during their therapy session, Xyler tried to act as if nothing had happened, but she couldn't quite meet Wilde's eyes. He, on their other hand, seemed to be enjoying her flustered state immensely as she guided him through a series of stretches. Wilde leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear. "You know, if you wanted a closer look at my anatomy, all you had to do was ask." Xyler's hands faltered and she nearly lost her grip on his leg. "Sergeant, please, I'm trying to maintain a professional demeanor here." Wilde grinned, unrepentant. "And I'm trying to get you to loosen up a bit, nurse. We both know there's something special between us. Why fight it?" Xyler sighed, torn between her growing feelings for Wilde and her duty as a medical professional. "It's not that simple. I have responsibilities and you're my patient. It wouldn't be right." Wilde sat up, his expression turning serious. "Xyler, I understand your reservations, but life is too short to deny ourselves a chance at happiness. I'm not just looking for a fling here. I genuinely care for you." Xyler's heart swelled at his words, and she found herself leaning into his touch as he cued her cheek. "I care for you too, Wilde, more than I probably should." He smiled, a tender, hopeful thing. "Then let's see where this takes us. No pressure, no expectations, just two people exploring the connection between them." Xyler hesitated for a moment longer before throwing caution to the wind and pressing her lips to his in a sweet, gentle kiss. Wilder responded eagerly, pulling her closer and deepening the kiss until they were both breathless. When they finally parted, Xyler rested her forehead against his, a giddy smile on her face. "I suppose we can give this a shot, but we have to be discreet. I don't want to jeopardize my job or your recovery." Wilde grinned, stealing another quick kiss. "Your secret is safe with me, nurse. Now about that private anatomy lesson." Xyler swatted his chest playfully, laughing despite herself. She knew pursuing a relationship with Wilde would be a challenge, but somehow she had a feeling it would be worth every obstacle they faced together. They could overcome anything. Xyler's fascination with human mating rituals grew with each passing day. It all started when she was searching for a medical reference book in the hospital's rarely used library section. As she rummaged through the dusty shelves, a small, unmarked box tucked away in the corner caught her eye. Curiosity piqued, Xyler pulled the box out and opened it, her eyes widening at the contents. Inside was a collection of erotic human literature ranging from steamy romance novels to more explicit instructional guides. She felt her cheeks flush a deep emerald as she flipped through the pages, her heart racing at the provocative images and descriptions. From that moment on, Xyler found herself sneaking away to the library during her breaks, devouring the books with a mixture of fascination and arousal. She marveled at the intricacies of human anatomy and the creative ways they expressed their desires. As she delved deeper into the erotic world of human mating, Xyler began to incorporate her newfound knowledge into her interactions With Wilde, during their therapy session, she would casually brush against him, her touch lingering just a moment longer. "The necessary, Sergeant," she purred, her fingers trailing along his arm as she helped him with a stretch. "I read the most fascinating thing about human male endurance last night. Apparently you're quite the marathon runners in the bedroom." Wilde grinned, his eyes dark-eying with desire. Well, nurse, looks like someone's been doing her homework. "I'd be more than happy to give you a private demonstration sometime." Zeller leaned in closer, her breath hot against his ear. "Is that a promise or a challenge, Sergeant?" "Both," he growled, his hands tightening on her hips. "And I never back down from either." Their flirtatious banter continued, growing bolder and more suggestive with each passing day. The sexual tension between them was palpable, crackling like electricity in the air. Zyler found herself craving Wilde a touch, her body responding to his proximity in ways she'd never experienced before. One afternoon, as she was guiding Wilde through a series of stretches, Zyler couldn't resist letting her hands roam over his muscular form, tracing the contours of his chest and abs. "You're looking rather fit, Sergeant," she murmured appreciatively. "I can practically feel the power radiating off you." Wilde smirked, flexing his muscles under her touch. "Well, I have been putting in extra time at the gym. Got to make sure I'm in peak condition for my favorite nurse." Zyler bit her lip, desire coursing through her veins. "And what exactly did you have in mind, Sergeant? Because I have a few ideas of my own." Wilde's eyes darkened, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "I bet you do care to share with the class." Before Zyler could respond, the sound of footsteps in the hallway broke the spell. She quickly stepped back, smoothing her uniform and trying to calm her racing heart. As the days went on, Zyler noticed a change in Wilde's demeanor. The frustration of his slow recovery was taking a toll, and he became withdrawn and irritable. She knew she had to do something to lift his spirits and remind him of the passion they shared, inspired by a particularly steamy scene from one of the erotic novels. Zyler planned a surprise physical therapy session for Wilde. She dimmed the lights in his room, lit a few scented candles, and queued up a playlist of sensual music. When Wilde arrived, his jaw dropped at the sight of Zyler in a form-fitting nurse's uniform, the neckline plunging to reveal a tantalizing hint of cleavage. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice rough with desire. Zyler sauntered over to him, her hips swaying seductively. "I thought we could try a different approach to your therapy tonight," she murmured, her hands gliding over his chest. "Something to help you relax and unwind." She guided him to the bed, urging him to lie down. "Now, Sergeant," she purred, a wicked gleam in her. "I have a special role play in mind for tonight. I'll be the naughty nurse and you'll be my disobedient patient. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to follow my every command. Do you think you can handle that?" Wilde grin turned predatory. "Oh, I can handle anything you dish out, nurse. Bring it on." Zyler trailed her fingers down his chest, her touch fetal and teasing. "Let's start with a little anatomy lesson, shall we? I want you to show me exactly where you like to be touched." Wilde breath hitched as he guided her hand lower, his hips bucking involuntarily. "Right there," he growled, his eyes rolling back in pleasure. Zyler smirked, her fingers closing around his tensing body. My Sergeant, it seems we have quite the eager student here. Let's see how well you follow instructions." What followed was a night of passion, laughter, and exploration as they lost themselves in their playful game. Zyler took great delight in ordering Wilde around, making him beg for her touch and rewarding him with mind-blowing pleasure when he obeyed as they lay tangled together. Afterwards, basking in the afterglow, Wilde pressed a tender kiss to Zyler's forehead. "That was incredible," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "You're incredible." Zyler smiled, snuggling closer to him. "You're not so bad yourself, Sergeant. I'm just glad I could help take your mind off things for a while." Wilde chuckled, his hand tracing lazy patterns on her back. "Oh, you definitely did that. In fact, I might need this kind of therapy more often. I think that can be arranged." Zyler grinned, nipping playfully at his jaw. "After all, it's my duty as your nurse to ensure your complete and thorough recovery in the days that followed." Zyler and Wilde continued to explore their growing bond. Both physically and emotionally, they traded stories of their past, their hopes, and their dreams, learning more about each other with each passing conversation. As Zyler and Wild's relationship blossomed. They found it increasingly difficult to keep their affections hidden from prying. Eyes, stolen glances, and lingering touches became a thrilling game of cat and mouse, each daring the other to push the boundaries of discretion. However, their secret tryst did not go unnoticed by everyone. Dr. Haxon, a senior physician with a reputation for strict adherence to hospital protocols, had been observing Zyler's interactions with their human patient with growing suspicion. One day, as Zyler was leaving Wild a room after a particularly flirtatious therapy session, Dr. Haxon confronted her in the hallway. "Nurse Zyler," he said, his voice cold and accusatory, "I couldn't help but notice the amount of time you've been spending with the human patient. Is there something I should be aware of?" Zyler's heart raced, but she managed to keep her composure. "Not at all, Dr. Haxon. I'm simply ensuring that Sergeant Wild receives the best possible care during his recovery." Dr. Hax's eyes narrowed. Unconvinced. "I see. And does this care often involve intimate touches and whispered conversations?" Zyler's cheeks flushed a deep emerald, but she held her ground. "I assure you, Doctor, my relationship with Sergeant Wild is strictly professional. I would never compromise my duties as a nurse." Dr. Haxon leaned in closer, his voice lowering to a menacing whisper. "I'll be watching you closely, Nurse Zyler. One misstep, and I won't hesitate to report your inappropriate behavior to the hospital board." With that, he turned on his heel and stalked away, leaving Zyler shaken and worried. She knew she had to be more careful, but the thought of giving up her newfound connection with Wild was too painful to bear. Later that evening, Zyler confided in Wild about her confrontation with Dr. Haxon. They lay tangled together in his hospital bed, their warmth of his embrace providing a momentary respite from her fears. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If Dr. Haxon exposes us, I could lose my job, and you could be transferred to another facility." Wild tightened his arms around her, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. "We'll figure this out together, Zyler. I'm not going to let anyone come between us, least of all some uptight doctor with a stick up his." As Zyler couldn't help but giggle at his colorful description, the tension in her body easing slightly. "I just wish we didn't have to hide how we feel. I hate sneaking around like this." Wild cupped her face in his hands, his eyes shining with determination. "Then let's be together out in the open. I'm willing to face whatever consequences come our way as long as I have you by my side." Zyler's heart swelled with love and gratitude, but a nagging sense of doubt still lingered. "I want that more than anything. But I'm scared. What if they separate us? What if we never see each other again?" Wild silenced her worries with a deep, passionate kiss when they finally parted. Breathless and flushed, he rested his forehead against hers. "I won't let that happen," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "I love you, Zyler, and I'll fight for us no matter what." Zyler's eyes widened at his declaration, her heart soaring with joy. "I love you too, Wild. More than I ever thought possible." They spent the rest of the night wrapped in each other's arms, their love a shield against the uncertain future that lay ahead. In the days that followed, Zyler and Wild were more cautious in their interactions, taking great care to maintain a professional facade in public. However, the stolen moments they shared behind closed doors only served to deepen their bond and strengthen their resolve. Dr. Haxon continued to watch them like a hawk, his suspicions growing with each passing day. He began to question other staff members about Zyler's behavior, hoping to gather enough evidence to bring his case to the hospital board. Zyler knew it was only a matter of time before their secret was exposed, but she refused to let fear control her actions. She focused on providing the best possible care to Wild, both as his nurse and as his lover. One afternoon, as Zyler was helping Wild with a series of stretches, the door to his room suddenly burst open. Dr. Haxon strode in, a triumphant smirk on his face. "I knew it," he crowed, pointing an accusing finger at the startled couple. "I've caught you red-handed, Nurse Zyler. Your inappropriate relationship with this patient ends now." Zyler's heart sank, but before she could respond, Wild spoke up, his voice calm and steady. "Dr. Haxon, I understand your concerns, but I can assure you that my relationship with Nurse Zelle has in no way compromised my care or her professionalism. In fact, her support and dedication have been instrumental in my Recovery. Dr. Haxon scoffed, unmoved by wild words. Save your excuses, Sergeant. The hospital has strict policies against fraternization between staff and patients. Nurse Zyler will face disciplinary action and you will be transferred to another facility immediately. Zyler's heart raced, panic rising in her throat. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Wild, not after everything they'd been through together. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw a glimmer of hope and determination. He took her hand in his, squeezing it reassuringly. Dr. Haxon Wild said, his voice ringing with conviction, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. You see, Nurse Zyler and I are more than just patient and caregiver. We're in love and we're willing to fight for our relationship, no matter the cost. Dr. Hack's eyes bulge with rage, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. This is outrageous. I'll have you both thrown out of this hospital. But before he could make good on his threat, a voice from the doorway interrupted him. I don't think that will be necessary. Dr. Haxon, all eyes turned to